Life is precious, but sometimes people lose sight of just how precious they are. And they can get into such a state, such a mindset, that they think that the end of their problems is to end their life. And that's not true. And today we're going to discuss a very sensitive topic, which is around suicide and in the effect of, well, not so much the effect, but in the workplace, our mental health is very important, because when someone's suffering at home, they're still going to be suffering when they're at work. And that's why this is an important conversation to have. And my guest today has had firsthand experience of going to that edge. And now she speaks on dealing with that in the workplace so that we can prevent that kind of unhealthy thinking, so that we can go on and live happy and productive lives. And we are going to talk to Donna Thistlethwaite right after this. The strongest prison bars are in your head. Leaders and teams, it's time for a jailbreak. Welcome back. Whether you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, you are very welcome. We would love you to like, subscribe, comment, and if you feel free to pop a comment in the chat and we'll put it up on the screen so that you can join in with us if you're watching with us live. Otherwise, you can still do the same if you're watching the recording later on. Donna Thistlethwaite, welcome to Trish TV.
Thanks, Trish. Awesome to be here.
Oh, it is awesome to be here, quite literally. And I'm so glad that you're still with us. And, I would love for you to share your story, and then we'll go into some, sometimes there are hard to ask questions that I've already checked with you that are okay to ask, but they're going to be of benefit to our listeners. And you did say to me that you do like to start with a disclaimer. So would you like to maybe just share how to phrase that for people might be? Is it just a warning?
Yeah. I'd call it more of a warning. Just that talking about suicide and mental illness, mental health can be triggering for some people. So if you do find yourself affected by the talk, please reach out to somebody. Maybe it's a friend, a colleague, a loved one. And if you're in Australia, we've also got the amazing Lifeline crisis supporters on 13 11 14.
Oh, fantastic. And I'll put that up through the show too.
Great.
So, Donna, tell us your story.
Yeah, sure, Trish. So in 2012, I was a HR professional. I had been with the company I was with about 16 years, had a great career, great reputation, by many measures, quite successful. Had a 2-year-old. I'd been back from maternity leave maybe around a year, and I was asked to go on to a project that involved restructuring the model of the human resources department in the organisation I worked in. So I was a HR professional, and I was also leading a small team, and it was the first time I'd been a leader in that organisation. So, everything went along fine for a few months, and then I actually had a situation where I had an argument with somebody who was working for me, and it was in the open plan office, the one where everyone can see everything and hear everything. And I felt really embarrassed, and I started really questioning myself. And I had been providing guidance and coaching to managers for many years on how to lead their staff. And all of a sudden I thought, well, wow. Oh my gosh, I'm not any good at it. It looks like I'm terrible at it. So it sort of fed into this crisis of confidence, you might say.
It can happen to all of us, where we think we're supposed to be good at something. And as Frank has popped in a comment saying that good to hear. It is a great topic to hear, and it's really important. And And Chris Knight, thank you. This is an important topic to speak about. So, you're already resonating with some people, Donna.
Mm-hmm.
And while I think of it, I've done up a banner for the Lifeline number.
Great.
Which is great. So, in fact, I'll put that as I'll put that to scroll across the bottom for a while for people as we.
Yeah.
What have I done here? Here we go. Scroll across it, save, and then there we go. We're all getting better at this. So
Great.
yeah.
So
Continue.
what happened is, over a fairly short time after this, I started to unravel at work. So that particular interaction triggered a whole bunch of my insecurities and my challenges from my past. So basically, for as long as I could remember, the first few decades of my life, I actually felt that I wasn't good enough, that there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't as clever as other people, that I was different, basically. And I thought I had put that to bed. I'd gone to university, I'd got outstanding marks as a mature age student, I was experiencing professional success. But what I hadn't realized that is, as much as I thought I dealt with those things, those cracks were still there. I hadn't got to the depth of them at that stage. And so they actually became the lens through which I interpreted the discussions that I had in the workplace. And I got to a point where I actually just felt like everyone thought I was a failure, the people that I was interacting with. And to reach out for help would mean that I had to announce to even more people that I was failing and that I was hopeless, which was what I was feeling on the inside.
Wow. Look, let me just, you've touched on something that is so, when you're in it, you don't realize, you have no idea how prevalent it is. And would you say that fits on that's something like the imposter syndrome?
Very
and
much.
I've had that myself, and that feeling of not good enough.
Yeah.
And it does affect your work life. And because that's so prevalent, this mental health issue is way more prevalent in the workplace as we realize that more people feel that way. So you were normal and reacting in a normal kind of a way, which is, it's kind of holding it. And you also touched on people, and we'll talk about this a bit later when you've gone through your story, about people feeling safe enough to be able to say, I need some help, I'm not coping, and not feel like that's going to cost them their job and their credibility. So that is a genuinely frightening thing. So if you're on LinkedIn and you're listening and you see this on LinkedIn, this is our world. The world of LinkedIn is all about the workplace and taking care of ourselves in it. So please continue, Donna.
Yeah, so I got to a point where I just felt like I couldn't stay at work, and I just thought, oh, my career's over here. And I actually just left work, told my boss, and I had an acting boss. So there's a whole bunch of different sort of variables in this story, I guess. And so I went to my GP. I told her how I wasn't sleeping, how I was feeling really distressed all the time, anxious, and she suggested that I take a break from work and prescribe something to help me sleep. And then I had this weird feeling over the following days that I had become one of the employees that I had been involved in counselling over the years. It was like I was on the other side of things now, and I felt like I would get the sack from work.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's irrational. I mean, I had excellent performance record. I had a lot of success in the organisation, but I got to a point that my thinking was no longer rational.
Yeah, we can undermine our own performance. We can. It's important to remember our successes, and we often don't. All we see is what's in front of us, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I think looking back, I was absolutely in, that fight or flight mode. And when we're in that state of, I guess, peaked anxiety, our executive functioning stops working. So, I couldn't work properly because I just didn't have that capability at that point in time. And all I could see was what I was doing wrong. I couldn't focus anymore, which is another sign that somebody's struggling. And yeah, it was a pretty crazy time, and it happened quite quickly. And I'm somebody that's fiercely independent, and I've always thought, I solve my own problems. And gosh, this was one time that I wish I had reached out and realized that I actually needed to get some help this time.
Gosh, so you didn't reach out.
No.
So what were the next things that happened?
Yeah. So what happened was when I figured or thought that I was going to be sacked from work, I became very fearful that I would cause financial problems for my family. I had talked my partner into refinancing his batch pad that he owned when we met in order to set our finances up better. And that had happened only a few weeks, maybe a month before. And I suddenly thought, I'm going to be the cause of him losing this batch pad. And yeah, it just freaked me out. And then I just thought, I'm going to be a terrible role model to my mother and a terrible role model for my son. And I thought, they're actually going to be better off without me. And I thought that my insurance would be better for them. And little did I know, and I obviously wasn't rational, that they wouldn't have even had access to that anyway. And they would never, ever, ever have been better off without me in any circumstances.
Wow. And did your family had no idea? Did they know you were sort of struggling and that you had finished work and that you're upset about it, but you protected them from your misery, which actually didn't protect you?
Yeah. Interestingly, my partner was away the week that this went down. And that's what I mean about the variables, because my new manager was out of the country. My partner was on a road trip with his mate to a combi show in New South Wales. And that was the first boys' trip. We'd been together probably 8 years then, and I didn't want to spoil his first boys' trip away. And so I just kept it all to myself. And yeah, bad move.
It really is, but I can understand why you don't want to cause any more problems, and yet not thinking about how that's going to turn out. You can't. You just. Oh, Donna! Wow, what a terrible dark place to be in.
It was, Trish, totally. And so when my partner got home from his trip, and he came home a day early, like he had sensed something was going on, but he didn't know what. And when I shared with him what had happened that week, I guess it just all felt even more real, and I felt so ashamed. I felt like I should have been at work because I sort of could, but I couldn't. I didn't want to be there. And I had established earlier that year that my key strengths were my vitality, my tenacity, and my integrity. And in that moment, I felt like I was none of those things. And it felt like an identity crisis where I was just, well, who am I? I thought I was that person. And if I'm not, I don't really know who I am. And yeah, that was quite a dangerous thing for me because I felt really lost. And what I've learned since is, it's great to have aspirations, but we're not perfect, and also we can make stories that don't help us out of any situation, I think.
Yeah, we really can. And we can find our value or perceive that our value is in our performance. And when you're stressed, you make mistakes. So you can't think. You're in that fight or flight mode. So your brain is not working properly. The blood has gone from your head to your hands and feet to help you run away.
Yes.
And you're in that workplace, and I know that happened to me when I was working for a company while I was waiting for my court date to come, and I could only do the most rudimentary tasks, and I was making mistakes to the point where I had to say, look, fortunately they knew what was going on with my life with facing prison, and I had to leave work because I was causing problems for them.
Yeah,
It
right.
didn't help my mental health, but my
Yeah.
goodness, and yet it's so common. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that
Yes,
I'm
that's
stressed,
right.
so I'm making mistakes, and I'm making
Yeah.
mistakes, which is making me stressed.
Yes.
Oh,
Totally. And, I'm a big believer in what we focus on grows, yeah, whether that's good or
yes,
bad. So,
it's so
yeah.
true.
I
So
know we haven't got much time, Trish. So, do you
we
want me
do
to?
keep going, keep going.
Yeah. So basically, after sharing with my partner what had happened, I went to bed that night and I just started to think, I don't know how to fix this. The only way that I can think to fix it is to not be here. And I started to think about means of ending my life, and hardly slept that night. And then the next night, I had decided what I was going to do, and that on the Sunday I would go to the Story Bridge in Brisbane and that I would jump off. And unfortunately, that is exactly what I did in the afternoon on Sunday, the 12th of August. And yeah, I woke up in hospital hours later, and I'm so grateful to be here, Trish.
Oh. So, and we do have time, Donna. We have time. We're only in 16 minutes, and we've
All
got
right.
30. What? And I've heard you give this talk in a longer version before.
Yeah.
So, if you're a part of a company and you would like to invite someone to come and share with your staff for your staff's well-being, then bring Donna in, because she goes into a lot more detail about what's going on and relating it to the workplace so that we can help one another. Can I ask you, Donna, as you walked across that bridge to the spot,
Yeah.
what was going on for you then in those? Do you remember?
I just became quite emotional, really. Interestingly, I had gone there with the intention to just, it was like a recce. I was working it out what I was going to do when I came back that night. I had told my partner I was going to get the groceries. I drove there and I was like, okay, where am I going to park? What's all this going to look like? And then when I got there, I just thought to myself, well, you're here. And I just felt very disconnected. There were people everywhere. It's a very common place for people to exercise and families to
Oh,
walk around the city. And so there were people everywhere, but I was just lost in my mind. I was crying. At one stage, I felt like someone was following me. I'm not 100% sure whether that was real or imagined. And then fairly quickly, I just went, okay, that's it, and walked to the middle and climbed over the fence. I'm so grateful there's very, very big fences on that bridge now.
it wasn't so big then, a bit harder to get over.
Yeah, it's much harder to get over now. I'm not even sure that anyone can, which is great, because what I know is that everything passes, and that staying alive means that we can get to the other side and have the most amazing life. But we've got to stay alive to get there.
We do. We do. Do you do you remember the moment, what might have gone through your head as you stepped off?
Yeah, I do. I remember it very vividly. My breath was taken away. I was just like, ah! And then I just said to myself, it's okay, you're going to the other side.
Oh,
And then
wow.
my body just relaxed completely.
And then you woke up in hospital?
I remember actually hitting the water. I remember hitting the water and the pain. It
Oh,
was
you
freezing
do?
cold. The water was freezing. It was August in the river. It was just so cold. And obviously I had physically injured myself. I fractured 5 vertebrae and a rib. I'd lacerated my liver. And so, yeah, I guess it was a combination of all of those things. So I remember resurfacing, and then I don't remember anything. I was rescued by a ferry by the crew of a ferry, who I'm eternally grateful to.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a miracle. Like, apparently jumping from a height like that, the impact is like hitting cement. So I could easily have not been here, and I'm so incredibly grateful that I am, because my life is now absolutely amazing.
Wow. Well, we are grateful that you're still here too, and no doubt your family is, of course. So it would have been a long journey, I imagine, when you woke up in hospital and you
Yeah.
were injured and you had to go through that recovery. Did you know at the time, I will never, ever do anything like that again? Or were you thinking, oh, did the depression follow?
Yeah. I was really shocked. Clearly I was irrational, because I thought if you jumped, then you died. And I hadn't entertained the thought that you could actually be permanently disabled, or
Wow.
other outcomes. That hadn't
Yeah.
occurred to me.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I think that's interesting, that I hadn't contemplated that. So when I woke up, it was just like, oh my gosh, this isn't what I expected as the outcome. And I would say in a relatively short time, maybe that night in hospital, or certainly over the first 24 hours, I actually had an insight where I went, oh my goodness, if you've survived that, you must be meant to be here. There is something you're here for. And
Wow.
a week later, I was checked into the mental health unit. So I was in the Royal Brisbane Hospital for my physical injuries, and of course my mental health. I
Yes.
accept it's not common to take the action I took. Part of being released, because I wanted to go to a birthday party for my 2-year-old niece at the time, was that I had to link in with the local mental health unit, and I did that that afternoon after the party, and then I went and spent a week there. And when I was checked into the mental health unit, the nurse there told me that if I had completed suicide, that my son would have been at 50% risk, a greater risk of suicide in his lifetime.
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to verify that statistic, but what I do know from many discussions with people who know about this topic is that he, or the child of somebody who dies by suicide, is at significantly greater risk of suicide in their lifetime, and also of mental health problems, because children don't understand all of that stuff, and they may very deeply believe that they had a role in it, or caused it in some way, and that that could be a way to get through troubles and whatever. So from that moment, I just went, you know what, I thought I was doing the best for my child, and what I see now is that I would be cursing him, and I would never, ever, ever do that again.
Wow. It makes me think, Donna, you mentioned to me another time that some people believe we should not talk about suicide because it might put the idea in people's heads. But I feel like with what you're saying, then if people can be more informed, and you were not informed about the effect it might have on your children. Like, if you had known that statistic, you probably would have thought, well, that's not an option. If you, before you get right to the end of the line, and if you can learn, that that's the case. And I have a friend whose husband had taken his life, and 10 years later, the son did as well. Yeah, the boy, he was 17 when he lost his dad, and I was her friend when she was a widow, and I was her friend when the son took his life, and I went to the funeral, and it was just horrendous. This poor woman. Oh, and it was messy as well. From what he'd left behind, and I think if people are more aware about the surrounding circumstances, then they're less likely to fall into that deception of, oh, it'll be better if. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to take us into the more positive aspect of the good outcome, because all things can work together for good. Not all things are good, but they can be turned around for our good. And I would love to introduce everybody to your work, your current work,
Yep.
which is, I'm going to share your website.
Okay, cool.
So we will go to here, which is, now have I got this? I've got, now the website is Donna's name. Now take notice of how she spells it. In fact, if I'll just go back to here.
Hey, Trish,
Donna,
I will point out that because my name is such a mouthful, people can actually type in donnaspeaks.com.au. It's like an abbreviated link because I appreciate that my name is not easy.
Donna
Speaks. Yeah, so basically that will redirect to my personal brand website.
Okay, so that is this one, donnaspeaks.com.au. Now let's go back to your website. So there we go. And look at this. She is the Oz Mumpreneur finalist.
Yeah, in a couple of categories. Well, actually in 3 categories I'm a finalist. So that's amazing. Very big honour.
Well, it is. And when I do the show notes, I will put the link so that people can vote for you.
Yeah, great.
Because I want to make sure people understand what you have been able to do. And you are about caring about employees and helping to empower them. So talk to us a little bit more about your work. That's great.
Yeah, sure, Trish. So just on those awards, 2 of them are judge categories. They're the ones that are on the screen there, but one is a people choice category. And so I think it's called Making a Difference, Health and Wellbeing. And the voting closes for that on this Friday, the 27th of August. Okay. So the work that I do now consists of me doing keynotes in organizations. So companies bring me in to share my story with their staff, lessons that I've learned from that story. But most importantly, I share 6 resilience strategies that were the first strategies that helped me change my life. Things like gratitude and being still and breathing, having our thing, something that lights us up. For me, it's cycling. For other people, it's something different. So I share these strategies and I give them to people actually on this little takeaway card that they.
Great. Hold on. Let me bring you up to. Hang on. I've got my mouse on 2 screens, so it's.
Oh yeah. So all my audience members get a little takeaway card, and so that can help them, remind them, embed the messages, that sort of stuff. So
fantastic.
Yeah, people love them. I sometimes get them sent photos of them on people's workstations and stuff like that, or somebody will bring it out of their wallet when I'm with them, which is just so lovely to know that they valued it. Because, I think the important thing is getting these things into our lives. It's one thing for me to talk and share, but it's only talk unless somebody actually does something with the information.
That's right. And you are all about, I've got another tab here. What was that one? You've got a workshop.
Yeah,
workshop building.
Yeah, I offer a free mini workshop on resilience about every 6 weeks. And that's really about people taking away some resilience practices of their own based on where they think their opportunities are against a model that we use called Resilience at Work, which I absolutely love. And so it's about introducing people to the model. They do a little action plan before the end of the session, highly interactive and a lot of fun. And, it's a mix of giving and also letting people know about the tool so they can consider whether it's for them or not.
Absolutely fabulous.
Another thing I do. So I think the next one of those is maybe the 15th of September. It probably says it on there, Trish. Yeah.
It probably does, but you've got
that's actually says
19th of November.
All right.
Yeah.
There's also one in September. I'll send you a link for that one.
Yeah, great. And we'll put that in the details afterwards.
Cool.
So, Donna, my goodness, thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's a very important topic. And is there anything else that I want to give you a chance, is there anything else you'd like to say to people before we go, or have we pretty much covered it? I know about
Oh
being
gosh,
proactive and so on.
Trish, you know me, I could talk for days about this stuff. Oh gosh, half an hour is just nowhere near long enough.
No.
I'd love to go into lots of details about the resilience strategies, but people can follow my work on LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn,
Yes.
Facebook page, Donna Thistlethwaite. I share lots of tips and ideas to boost people's resilience on those platforms. I guess what I would also say to people out there is, if you are currently struggling, please reach out to somebody. Okay, don't do it on your own. Yes. It's just we can't solve our own problems sometimes, and we need to get help. And what I want to also tell people is that there is hope. There is absolutely hope. So, maybe you're not really struggling at the moment, but you're feeling stuck. You have unhelpful thoughts in your head like I did. Know that life can get better, and please don't ever give up until you find what it is that's going to improve your life. Because if anyone had told me any time in my life that it would be the way that it is, that I actually really like myself, that amazing things would happen, like being on national television, being on big stages, talking to groups of 800 people, I'm about to I've just got notification of a gig yesterday with an organization with 240,000 employees over 40 countries. I haven't gone looking for this stuff. It has come to me as I've worked on myself, as I've given to other people, and as I've just stepped into my potential. And that is available to everyone.
You are going to help so many people. So that's donnaspeaks.com.au, and the Lifeline number is there. And my goodness, Donna, thank you so much for being on our show. It's a really important topic. Please, if you are connected or if you're part of an organisation, hire Donna to talk to your people about caring for one another in the workplace, for their mental health. Hire me for the stuff I do, and we will see you next time.